Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And yeah, we're talking about The Phantom Menace today, the first of the prequels, or episode 1, technically in the series. Yeah, this is where it all starts. This is the birth of Anakin, the first time we see Obi-Wan Kenobi, his master and the Emperor and everything. And it's this movie was a big deal. It was such a big deal and it became such a popular, infamously, they made that movie Fanboys, with Dan Fogler. I think that's how you say his name. He was in Fantastic Beasts and a handful of other stuff, but they're like going to see this movie. Like, it was that much of a big deal. And yeah, I watched it, and I would say my first time I ever watched this, I watched it, I would say 2015, 2016, I think was the first time I ever watched The Phantom Menace. Watched it on VHS. And I know that sounds like I'm making that up, but we had it on VHS. We had the originals. They had the special edition and the original release, the big box set you can find everywhere. So we had the VHS of The Phantom Menace, so we put that in because we didn't have the DVD. So first time I watched it on VHS. And rewatching it in Blu-ray and everything, it's an interesting movie. For sure, but well, I guess without further ado, let's get into that. One thing I can say that's positive about these movies is you have such a great cast. You have Liam Neeson, plays Qui-Gon Jinn. Obviously, you have Ewan McGregor, who plays the younger version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And his portrayal of him has been mixed with fans. Some people like Ewan McGregor, some people don't like it. They like Alec Guinness, but really we don't see a whole lot of Alec Guinness. We kind of see him as a Force ghost, and we do see him as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, Ewan McGregor playing a different version. He's playing a younger, I say cockier, but he's playing a younger version of Obi-Wan Kenobi than what we see. And so, yeah, it's going to be a different take. And I guess that's what people don't understand. And he's a Padawan, or he's an apprentice in this movie. He's not so much the Obi-Wan Kenobi we see in the first Star Wars. And so, that's people's opinions differ on him, but I really do like Liam Neeson. Watching it back, I really like Liam Neeson's portrayal of Qui-Gon Jinn. I think it is good. He is a master. He's still much of a teacher, but he's not like up his ass. Kind of like Yoda is to Luke. Yoda, he's kind of like this crazy, weird hermit, free spirit teacher, but he has a lot of lessons to teach. And I thought he did a good job with that. We see Jake Lloyd plays young Anakin Skywalker, and as a kid actor, unfortunately people made fun of him for this movie, which I think is just pitiful that people would make fun of like, I don't know how old he was, like 7 I think when he did this movie, made fun of this little kid that he played in a Star Wars movie. I mean, he's a little kid. I don't know what people were expecting, but I think he did fine. We don't know what Anakin, we've only ever seen Anakin as Darth Vader at this point, so yeah, he was a little kid. He's special. He's like a pilot, like Luke wanted to be a pilot. He's ambitious. He wants to be a Jedi and all this stuff. And he's very much a wide-eyed kid. He wants to explore the world, but he's just held back by his situation. And I don't understand the hate that this kid gets. Like, maybe his line delivery is a little awkward, but George Lucas has that, he makes that mistake from time to time, especially in these movies. It was worse, but when the other movies had the different directors directing, George Lucas did all these. He directed all these prequels, so maybe it wasn't his strong suit, but there was a lot of other things to shit on him for about this movie. But I don't think Jake Lloyd being Anakin, I don't think is one of them. I think he tried his best with the material he was given, the script he was given, and I don't think it's his fault. So he ended up doing some jail time. I think he got in an accident or he got involved in drugs and stuff like that. So people really fucked him up, making fun of him for this movie and later on down the line. But I think he did fine. Another cool thing, you got these movies, you have the ability to you have the wires, and you have to take all that out with the computer graphics, so they can do flips and tricks and stuff with the lightsabers. And I think the lightsaber fights in these movies are fun. They can do a lot more effects wise, and they kind of perfected it. in these movies. I think the best fighting scenes we see, although they might be goofy because they're always flipping around, are still really cool and they're really fun and exciting. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see. You don't want to see boring sitting talking scenes like you have in a lot of these movies. A lot of sitting and talking and about trade deals and stuff like that. But the lightsaber fight scenes that we do have in this movie are absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed them. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, that was cool, you know. And now they can actually, it's not like in the movies where you have the they do the lightsabers and you don't see them getting cut. Like when you have these movies, you can add in the effects of the droids getting cut, and so you see them do more damage to these droids, and it's not like implied. But they have these lightsabers and you see nobody get cut, they just whoo, and then they fall over. You know what I mean? And so you do get to see more damage that these lightsabers do in this movie. We also get introduced to one of the most liked villains of this franchise, Darth Maul. Even though he doesn't do much, he's kind of like Boba Fett. He doesn't say much, but what he does, he has the cool lightsaber, which I love his lights. I actually used to have the Darth Maul lightsaber. I don't know what happened to it. I've moved so much in the past that it's got misplaced somehow. But I used to have the Darth Maul lightsaber. I wish I still had it because it's pretty cool. That's a really awesome lightsaber. No, watching it now, I watched it back, and he has, you see at the ends of the lightsaber, it's just plastic, it's just flat plastic, so there's no thing that comes out, it's just flat on the bottom. I noticed that, so it's all light sticks, and it's all effects that was added. Or maybe they just did it for that scene, because that scene I'm talking about, it was in the scene where they're on Tatooine, and they're fighting, and he's using just the one part of the lightsaber, and him and Qui-Gon Jinn gets at a pretty heated battle, and I thought that was fun. He's another one of the highlights this franchise. I would say this franchise, but he's one of the highlight villains. Although he doesn't do much, he does get more in when they revamped the Clone Wars show, the last season or whatever, I think it was. He does get more dialogue, which is good, and it takes place after he's been sliced in half. He's got like robot legs, I think, and we get more of Darth Maul in the Clone Wars show, which is I don't consider canon in this universe, but it's just like Rebels, you know what I mean? That was fun, and I would say my last positive for this movie is I really like the pod racing scene. The build up to it is kind of eh. That's how we meet Anakin. We meet Watto, and they get stranded on Tatooine, and he goes to do this pod racing to get Anakin to free him and everything. And yeah, I could see how it's like one of people's highlights. People like it. It got made into a video game. It's really fun, and it's kind of like if I was watching this in like IMAX, and you see take the what do you call it? They had like that 4D experience where you like move, the seats move and everything. Like I imagine that experience would be cool, and I can only imagine what it was like in theaters, seeing it instead of on a small screen. You can watch it in theaters, and it's like, whoa! I'm sure people were like moving in their seats because it's fun and intense, and that's one of the best scenes in the movie is the pod racing scene, in my opinion. Now on to the negatives, and I feel like I shit on this movie way too much. But you have, and I've talked about it way too much in this franchise, just because we unfortunately have the additions of the movies where they're not the best, the best versions of it with the Star Wars, and so we have the bad CGI in the original. They added to the original movies, and now we have it and much more prevalent in these newer ones. And in my opinion, I think the CGI looks the worst in this movie. Like Jar Jar, the effects of Jar Jar, I think it's weird when you see like Liam Neeson. It's like real person and an obvious CGI thing, and obviously I know it's gonna be fake. But with something that they had I'm not sure who did the practical effects. Was it Stan Winston? I'll have to look it up, but I'm not sure. I think Stan Winston did the effects for these movies. They couldn't come up with a practical Jar Jar head. I don't understand how that effects look so bad. And I'm sure if you go back now, you add rougher textures, give it more details. I'm sure you could take those old movies, fix the smooth CGI, and it would look perfectly fine, because it happens all the time. They did it with Terminator. They taking stuff like making the red eye move more, so it's not like just the effect where it's just still, so it looks like it's more animated. Going back and fixing that, adding little bits of stuff there, taking out the wires, taking out you know, making stuff a little bit more brighter. I noticed that some of the effects, like some of the effects of the lightsabers, looked a little dull, and it might have just been the film grain, but I noticed that it looked a little dull, the lights that they had. It was just a weird thing. But yeah, like I said, the CGI just looks so rough, and it looks, like I said, it looks the worst in this movie. People are going to say Attack of the Clones. I can say that those clones in those movies, they look fake, but at least they look decent. They look decent. The effects in this, they look the worst out of the entire prequel trilogy. And I've said this, mentioned this earlier. I was talking about they had lots of talking in this movie, like lots of scenes of them sitting around talking about what these people are doing, and lots of scenes where you have a lot of exposition, and it's kind of boring. I could see how people could be turned off by that. It's like, I want to see Star Wars, I want to see action, I want to see people getting saved and rescued and fighting scenes and stuff like that. And we get those later on. But this movie's just a lot of talking, and I can see how it can get boring to people who are watching it for the first time. And they want to see Star Wars, the new movies, and they watch the old ones, and it's like, oh, this is boring. They don't want to watch it. And so I can see why people don't like this one for that reason. And the last thing I want to say is that no matter what happens going forward in the Star Wars franchise, the prequels, they've had their day to shine. And George Lucas didn't want to make a trilogy. He wanted to make Revenge of the Sith, and that's it. We kind of got forced to make the prequels, the first two. And I think it kind of sucks, but I can imagine if what they had imagined for Revenge of the Sith wouldn't be ready. If that was what he planned on doing back in the 90s, Revenge of the Sith would not have been ready. And I'm kind of curious who they would have gotten to play an older Anakin if that were the case. But I would say, all in all, like I said, with the parts that I liked were enjoyable. I mean that's very far few between. It's very spread out through the movie, with the bad effects and the boring aspects of it, where you're just kind of just sitting there watching people talk. I would say this movie comes in at like 2.5, and I give it it's not all the way down to 1, because it's not totally terrible. Like I said, it's a stepping stone to better movies, and despite what people say Attack of the Clones is the worst of the prequels, are the worst of the series, period. I think Last Jedi took a lot of people's places as the worst of the series for other reasons. But yeah, I still think it's a stepping stone movie. It's not so much like it wouldn't stand alone. I guess it could stand alone as an own story. It's like, this is what happened if they didn't make this movie. It's like, this is Anakin, and he becomes to be Darth Vader. But you kind of need those other movies. But like I said, good cast, good scenes spread throughout. I think it comes in at a D plus. Still a passing grade, but I think it's solid D plus. So yeah, that was my thoughts on The Phantom Menace. What do you guys think? Do you think it's the worst of the series? Let me know in the comments below. I know this one doesn't have its fans, but I think there's some people who can appreciate the campiness of it in some ways. It wasn't terrible. I was kind of dreading going back to these movies, so we'll see what we think of Attack of the Clones. Rewatching that. I'll be watching that in a couple of days. But let me know what you guys think. If you rather listen to this on the go, check out the podcast format of this. Basically, it's just this video on Spotify. It's same name. This video will be The Phantom Menace. It'll be SPLATTERVISION Presents. All those links will be in the description. It'll just be The Phantom Menace. So you click on that, and you will be able to listen to this video in full and hear my opinions and thoughts and everything on the go, so you don't have to sit there and watch YouTube. Those will be coming out a day early on Spotify, and the videos will be releasing the day after. So I'm going to try to shoot for a Thursday on the Thursday hopefully one or two of these videos come out on Friday, and then the Thursday will be what days when they come out on Spotify. So check those out, follow me there, and also follow me on the Hollywood Morgue on Spotify. I'll be putting out more podcasts hopefully pretty soon on that as well. So thank you guys for watching and listening. If you're watching this, listen to this on Spotify. And yeah, I will see you in the next video.